Well, welcome to this edition of Wealth Psychology at Sylvia Global's network. We're really excited to be here today for this edition of our show. I am Emily Bouchard. I am the host of the show, and my co-host, Jamie Traeger-Muni in Israel, is, for those of you who've been following the show, is being treated for breast cancer, and so she's on hiatus right now. She's doing great. She's finished her 2 rounds of chemo, and she just went through her run-through for radiation. It's been quite a journey for her, and we're all making sure that she knows how welcome she is to join us at any time, and looking forward to hearing her progress. And right now, we're going to be talking about something really important that matters to anybody anywhere on the globe, and it has to do with what happens in our lives when we decide that we want to branch out and make a purchase of something tangible, very big, tangible in real estate. And there's a lot of emotion in that conversation. And this show is completely geared toward supporting people in furthering their ability to move effectively with major decisions in their life that are related to money and how they move in relationship with their money. And if there's a lot of money at stake, it tends to heighten whatever emotional impact these decisions can have. And so recently I was talking to somebody who's 60 years old, and she's a recent widow, and she's dealing with the impact of the money from her husband's life insurance policy. And she's pretty overwhelmed by all the different options that are out there in terms of what she can do with it, and not necessarily wanting it all to be in one place. And she's being advised to invest in real estate. And she told me she's been going to some seminars on real estate investing, and I had this little red flag come up, and I thought, oh, we need to have an expert on the show to talk about the pitfalls, the things you need to know about, what is really important when you enter into the world of real estate investing, whether it's buying your first home or whether it's going into commercial real estate with a I don't even know if we'll find out what the term is for it now. It's syndicate. We'll find out. So we have a really wonderful guest today. He's somebody that I know and trust and have done work with. His name is Fleming, and Casey has been in the mortgage industry since 1979. Wow, Casey, I definitely want to find out about your longevity and staying power in an industry that has a lot of ups and downs. So we're going to talk about, he's in Northern California in the same area where I am. I'm coming to you from Marin. Casey, you're down in, are you in San Jose?
Yes, I live in San Jose.
Great. And we're going to be talking about this locally and globally, because my understanding is you even, you own some property in another state. Is that correct?
That's correct. I've done some investing in the Southwest.
Great. So we're going to have a conversation from your personal experience, from your experience with clients that you've worked with. What do you see there in terms of the whole real estate investing world? So thank you for being here. Really grateful for you to take the time and join us on the show.
Thank you for inviting me. I'm honored to be on.
Great. So first, tell us a little bit about why you have been in the mortgage industry since 1979, because it's something that people wouldn't necessarily think, wow, I'm going to do this for the rest of my life. Like, what is it that had you say, this is where I want to be?
There's a lot of different things you can do inside the mortgage industry, and that keeps things interesting. I actually started off as an appraiser and spent the bulk of the first half of my career as a commercial real estate appraiser. And doing feasibility studies for developers and working for larger banks. And then...
No, wait, I need to slow you down, because one of my jobs on this show is to treat this like somebody has never heard these terms before. So
Okay.
Appraisal is making sure that somebody knows the value of a property. Like, say a little bit about why somebody would need an appraisal, and then a feasibility study. These are terms that you are swimming in all the time, but somebody who's just tuning in, who's thinking about this for the first time, might be like, oh, what's an appraisal? Why do I need one? We want to make sure that people really understand what we're talking about. So I'll slow you down and jump in.
Perfect, thank you. An appraisal is a valuation of a piece of property, any type of real estate, and it would most often be used when you're trying to acquire financing, but there's dozens of other uses for appraisals as well. A feasibility study is when somebody's looking at a piece of property and they want to develop it in one way or another. Then they might hire a real estate consultant to go out and study the feasibility of their proposed project. And feasibility means primarily the financial feasibility of it. Is it actually going to work? But it also, you have to look at the legal feasibility and physical feasibility as well.
Oh, okay, so like I have this great idea, something that I want to do with this raw land I found, and then I have to find out, wait, can I build like a bunch of things that can make money on it, commercial things, or is it just only meant for being living in a residential area and just for houses? Or how many houses can I put on it, like legally? And then also, even if I do all of that, can it actually make money like that?
Exactly.
Okay, great. Okay, so you did that for a long time. You did that for a number of years, and then you've branched out after that, or
I migrated from there into doing loans, and I've been doing mortgage loans now for 18 years. And in that, I do primarily residential, but I've also done lending on commercial properties and apartments.
okay. And then you've also looked at that's knowledge that you have, what you've done for other people, and you've applied it in your own life then? Is that how you went along with making your own investment, or?
Well, yes, because I have the going back to the appraisal, my life as an appraiser, and pulling in those skills. When I wanted to do some investing of my own, of course, I could tap back into those skill sets and the tools that I had developed, and look at the potential investments that I was looking at from a highly analytical point of view. And so, for instance, it's one thing to say, well, am I getting a good deal or not? But it's another thing to look at whether or not a property is going to perform in the long run, and it has to do an awful lot with economic factors and a million things around the property to make a decision. Is this the right investment for me?
Yeah, it's interesting that you said that. I think that's one of the key components of this show is when we hear the word analytical, it's kind of like from the neck up. It's really how do you look at this logically? How do you really break it down in terms of the analysis, the numbers, you really look at it from so many different angles in terms of what's reality in terms of this. And from the neck down is all the emotional part of it. It's the physical body. It's the oh my gosh, it's the most beautiful thing I've ever seen, or oh, I'm terrified about what this is going to, there's a lot of emotion and it triggers so much for people. And I wanted to talk to you specifically about the emotional component that goes into making these decisions. Like, have you ever sat down with somebody and had all this really great analytical data saying whether or not something will work, and having somebody's emotional response keep them from actually hearing or seeing the data for what you're presenting? Have you ever experienced anything like that?
Well, many, many times. And I usually try to clear out the emotional questions before we even get into the analysis because, quite frankly, it's more important. It's sort of a starting point. And so before we sit down and say, can you buy this piece of real estate? The first question that I like to sit down and answer is, should you be buying this piece of real estate?
Well, let's dive into that. So when somebody is contemplating this idea and they're looking at buying a piece of real estate, what are the key components that you're looking at that let them see whether it's a good idea for them or not?
Well, a lot of it is really why. The first question is why do you want to buy a piece of real estate? And obviously the reasons are usually different if somebody's looking to buy a home for themselves and their family or a piece of investment real estate. With a piece of investment real estate, oftentimes people believe they're somehow magically going to make millions of dollars overnight on a piece of real estate and just flip it. And so understanding what their goals are and understanding what their expectations are is really helpful, but also understanding whether or not it's even the right investment for them. For instance, do they have the financial feasibility
Right.
to be able to buy it and carry it and be able to hold it through any downtimes?
Oh, like if they buy something where they're depending on the rent from either the retailers or the people living in it, and there's a downtime and maybe it's in places and it go empty, can they carry the difference like that?
That's correct. If with income producing real estate, it's never a smooth road 100% of the time. It just doesn't work that way. And so if somebody isn't really prepared to deal with that, there's four different ways to invest in real estate, going from where you own your own property all the way to just simply investing in a fund. And if you need or want to own your own property, if you can't stand to have 1 or 2 months where you're not making any money, you might even have to put money into it, you shouldn't be buying it on your own.
Okay, let's just slow down right there. 'Cause,
Okay.
you like burst some bubbles. Like, no, no, I want real estate to be a passive income stream. I don't ever have to touch it. Like, there's people that really go into it with that mentality, and it can be a bit of a what? It's more complicated than that. And then I like what you said. It has an emotional component. Like, do you have the tolerance for it? Do you have not just the financial wherewithal, but what happens to your anxiety level and your stress level when there is a downtime, when it isn't producing money? Like, people have to really look at that component as well then when they're making a decision like this.
Absolutely. Especially, I mean, there will be months when your property manager will call you and ask you to write a check. So rather than you earning income from the property, you'll actually be supporting it for 1 month or 2 months. And if you don't have the stomach for it, that's not how you should be investing in real estate. There's other ways that are more passive and more conservative.
Can we talk about the four ways? Because you started to mention that, so that'd be great.
Yes. So what most people think of is they just go out and they buy a piece of property. And so think of that as your first option. There's advantages and disadvantages to each one, of course. If you buy your own rental property, the advantage is you get 100% of the benefits, 100% of the cash flow income and 100% of the appreciation, and you don't have to deal with other partners. The disadvantage is you also get 100% of the headaches and liability. So unless you really want to make this a side job, and it's a job, it's not a passive investment by any means, then that's really not a good way to go. Second, the next way.
So just, you use liabilities, and I just want to be clear that it's like let's get nuts and bolts here. If you own a rental property, whoever's in there, if they have an issue with a flood or the roof leaking or the toilet overflowing, or I'm just trying to think of mice getting in, it's like your responsibility to make sure that those things are fixed, right? Like if I own that property, it's my job to make sure it's viable, livable, that sort of thing.
That's very well said. That's exactly it. Is you're responsible for providing a clean, safe, healthy place for those people to live, because that's what they're paying you for. So anything that goes wrong with the property, you're going to have to take care of. Plus, of course, people lose their jobs, or things happen, and suddenly they can't make payments, and now you have to go deal with this tenant who is sitting in your property, refusing to leave and not paying you rent.
That brings in the whole legal part too. Yeah, and that happens for sure.
It
Yeah.
happens. It happens fairly frequently.
We had a rental property. We rented a house, and not only did they not pay rent, they then took us to court and said that our house was poisoning them. And it was quite an amazing thing. It was like, and it was an extraordinary experience because they were insisting on staying there, and yet they were also insisting that it was very unsafe. And we were able to prove that it wasn't unsafe and that they weren't paying their rent. And the judge was phenomenal. He listened for 5 minutes, and he said, "If the house is poisoning you, how quickly can you get out?" And we were like, "Okay, we have this logical mode." But for him, it was like, "No, I have every right to stay here and have you provide me with this healthy place, and I don't need to pay for it, and I can still stay here." And it was quite an extraordinary experience to feel so at the mercy of a tenant's view of what was going on. And it was one of those things like, wow, did we learn a lot by just understanding tenants' rights. And I know that it changes from state to state, but yeah, there's a lot there when you are the sole owner of a piece of property that you rent out. No question about it.
Absolutely. So if you don't have the stomach to handle issues like that, you shouldn't invest in category 1.
Okay.
As a sole owner. Category 2 would be going into partnership with a couple of people, one or two or three people, and buying a property together. And it's not too much different than buying property on your own, except that you share the responsibilities, which is nice,
Mhm.
but you also share all of the liabilities, so you still have some liability. And if your partners don't step up, you can have some difficulties that way. So that category is probably one of the most common ways of investing in real estate for small investors. And I actually think it's probably the least attractive, unless you have a fantastic relationship with the people that you're investing with that isn't going to be destroyed by that investing. Is
Right.
there, there again, we talk about the emotional component.
Because when
And
you're in partnership with people, you're in partnership with them. I mean, you're in a sense, these are people that you're saying, I want to really be intimately involved with. Like it's something you really need to know about.
absolutely, absolutely. So the next step up is something called syndications, which you alluded to at the beginning of the show. And what a syndication is when a general partner finds a property, assembles a group of investors, typically up to about 30, and to raise the money to buy the property, and then buys the property, and you've got typically a limited liability corporation, but it could be any legal form. And there's one managing partner who's responsible to handle all of the day-to-day affairs, and then everyone gets benefits based on their percentage of ownership in the property. And the managing partner, bless you.
Sorry. Sorry, it's definitely spring in Northern California.
So the managing partner takes a percentage of the profit as his management fee.
And is that something that everybody in the syndicate agrees to? And like it's an understood fee that's right up front?
Yes, it's all defined in the contract up front, and that's actually a fairly good way to invest in that it's generally pretty darn passive. And there's usually a professional that's managing everything for you. And of course, the downside is that there's somebody who's taking a piece of the profit away.
Mhm.
So your profits, in theory, could be a little bit lower. But it's usually, if it's structured properly, there's usually little or no downside risk. And it becomes a passive investment, which is great for first-time investors.
So it seems like the most important thing then, because I'm thinking about it from the standpoint of like the 60-year-old widow, is making sure that there's a tremendous amount of trust and vetting of the person who'd be the managing partner. Because I can see like when you're so dependent on that person that you're paying to do a good job, being somebody who's really a consummate professional that does a good job is really essential. Like one of the dangers that often can happen with the inheritors and people like this woman that we work with is that they will be often very fearful of being taken advantage of, or that they will be taken advantage of because they so innocently go in trusting without getting all of the background data about somebody. So it seems like that's the key component because you're so dependent on that one person. If they disappear, if they start doing things that aren't quite right, you're really stuck, it seems, from what you just described.
And that's absolutely true. There's two big risk factors, I think, in syndications, and one is that if you're dealing with the wrong person, it can be just disastrous. So, for instance, you said that your client was being invited to seminars on investing in real estate, and certainly not everybody who's putting seminars together is a bad player, but it raises a little bit of a red flag just the fact that they're putting that together. And I only say that because the best way to determine whether or not someone is going to be able to properly take care of your investment is through referrals. Do you know someone that knows the person that's putting together the syndications? Do they trust them? Do they have a personal experience with them? That sort of thing. Many of the folks who are actually what we call the organizers of the syndications are not even necessarily real estate professionals. They oftentimes don't have real estate licenses, that sort of thing. So doing some vetting of the person who's assembling the syndication, I think, is extremely important. But the best possible thing you can have is referrals from someone you really trust.
Now, it's interesting because when you said that, my little red flag immediately went up because what did we hear in the news so strongly about, Madoff and people like that, where it was all word of mouth and all referrals. It's like, oh, I've got the best deal ever. You got to go to this guy. And people just went right on the trust of the referrals. And when you speak to any really savvy investors, and they looked at it and they were like, no, I'm not touching this because I can't determine how he's making his money. Like, having a third party check it out that's absolutely grounded in the profession is really important. Like, one of the reasons I love your approach as an advisor to this is with all this experience from these different vantage points from so many years in the field. It's like if I have somebody come to me with a real estate investment, it's like I want to go to somebody like you who can look at it very objectively and give me the analysis that you said and tell me how to vet this person. Like, well, how do I find out what their credentials are, and how do I find out what other deals they've done and how those have been successful? Are they public record? Can you find out like what their track record is with something else? Like, those things seem vitally important if you're going to risk your money and your for some people it's like their retirement. I'm going to invest in this and it's going to throw off enough passive income that I can live off of it. Wow, well, we've got to make sure that you're grounded in a really good clarity about, is this person really worth that level of trust?
Exactly. And your description of it was perfect. Those are the exact questions you need to ask.
Great. And I also have to laugh because those of us that only know about real estate investing and these words from the movies, you hear syndicate, you hear mob, it's just like those two words just go together, and it's like, can you tease that out for people who are tuning in? Like, the word syndication is obviously a legitimate word. It makes sense. It has to do with a form of real estate investing. And yet, as soon as I hear it, and I know people that are tuning in that don't know this field, it's immediately like, wait, that's something that the mob does, and that's like not even legal, or that, what is that? So I don't know if you can help us tease that out a little bit, but I think that would be nice to know. Like, wait, what is this?
A syndicate really is just an organization of people with a common purpose.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, technically, I think that's the definition of the word. And so in real estate terms, it's all it really means is that an investor or an organizer has put together a group of investors to invest with a common purpose. So that's all a syndicate is. It's just simply, it's not a legal form of ownership. It's just a term that describes the process of organizing, assembling all of the investors. And then the legal form of ownership is actually either the LLC or a limited liability partnership or a corporation, usually an LLC.
Great. Well, thank you. So that's the third one. And then what's the fourth one then?
The fourth one is called the REIT. That's a real estate investment trust. And you would normally see that written as REIT. And those are syndications on a larger scale where they're actually securitized. So what that means is that they have been vetted by a securities broker-dealer, and shares in a REIT can trade on the stock market. And that's actually becoming very popular right now. REITs are actually doing very, very well today, primarily because real estate is doing very, very well, and they invest in real estate. So you would buy this through a securities dealer. You would buy an interest in a REIT. It's very passive, and it's also very liquid.
Okay, so again, for people that don't necessarily understand these terms, passive means not a lot of engagement. It's not a hard job to be invested in that kind of real estate. And liquid means if I'm not happy with the returns I'm getting, I can get my money out pretty easily. Is that what you're saying?
Yes. Passive means that you have no involvement in management at all. It's just like buying a mutual fund. And liquid means you can sell your shares at any time, just like you would in a mutual fund. You would go to your broker-dealer and say, I want to sell my 1,000 shares in that REIT, and they handle that right there. You're out in 10 minutes.
Whereas if you're the sole owner of a property or in a syndicate or you get a couple of partners together, it's not that easy. Like you have to find another buyer for it, or it's you'd have to put on the market. It's more intensive. It's not as liquid, like you said.
That's correct. It's very illiquid, and especially if you own your own property, and it turns out that it's the kind of property that is not particularly popular at the moment. When you want to sell, it could take months or even years to get rid of a piece of property.
Yeah, that makes sense. And can you speak a little bit about, because I can feel like anxiety in the listening of this in terms of what's the difference between a REIT and a mortgage-backed security? Because like that was the downfall of in 2008 was this whole nightmare that happened with all of these mortgages being lumped together and sold and people investing in them. And you're saying this is a really great thing to invest in. How is that different than what ended up toppling the financial markets?
So a mortgage-backed security, you've opened up a can of worms.
These are people listening and thinking, well, wait, investing in real estate on the stock market, isn't that dangerous? Like, we don't have to go into like super detail, but how is this REIT not nearly as dangerous as those were?
Well, the problem with the mortgage-backed securities that were being sold in 2005, 2006, 2007 is that many of them were actually designed to fail. And those of us who were in the industry were way too naive to believe that anybody would actually do that. Mortgage-backed security is it's a security that represents a right to collect debt that is generated from a pool of mortgages. So if you buy mortgage-backed securities, there's a pool of mortgages. People are making payments on this pool of mortgages. As the income comes in, it gets distributed to the holders of the securities. There's nothing wrong with mortgage-backed securities as an investment vehicle. It's a fixed income, though. It's all you're doing is lending money and getting it back out. So there's no appreciation or anything else like that you get with real estate. All you're doing is just you're earning money on you're earning interest on your money.
Yeah.
With a real estate investment trust, they can invest in anything real estate related. So interestingly enough, REITs often invest in mortgage-backed securities as part of their investment process. In addition, though, real estate investment trusts usually invest in real estate itself. So they get the benefits of the income stream and the appreciation that the real estate provides. I know that there was a lot of bad things that happened in 2006, 2007, and a lot of people lost a lot of money on mortgage-backed securities. And it's an investment that's only really appropriate for institutional lenders because they don't have very high yields, and they tend, and you're buying like if you buy a mortgage-backed security based on 30-year fixed loans, it's a 30-year payback. You can get out anytime, but the value might fluctuate. So I'm trying to think of how to simplify this.
Thanks.
Individuals generally would not buy mortgage-backed securities. They might, but they probably wouldn't. Whereas individuals can buy REITs and enjoy the benefits of real estate, the appreciation and the rental income. And the only disadvantage with the REITs is there's an awful lot of middlemen to pay. You have property managers, you have the organizers of the REIT itself, you have the securities and brokers dealers, as well as the agents that are selling the stock. So there's a lot of people that take a pound of flesh on the way through, but you end up with all of the benefits of owning real estate with none of the headaches.
Yeah, it's great, and I'm kind of visualizing a chart as you're speaking, and it's like there's the greater chance of return with the greater amount of risk and liability, and then it's like you really get to decide to what degree you want to engage in this, and it has so much to do with your interest, your constitution, and what your skill sets are in terms of what degree you would want to interface with real estate investing. I'm seeing that. Like, a landlord that has to take care of a toilet, like they may want to go in with the plunger and do it themselves, or they're going to want to make sure that they know exactly how to take care of that. Whereas somebody who invests in a REIT, they don't ever have to think about a single toilet and anything that's been purchased. They get to just get their return on that. And is it like a dividend check, or is it a, like, how do you get paid on that? Is it only if you sell it that you get the money, or?
Oh, that's an excellent question, and you put that very well, by the way. That's exactly it. Is you need to determine as an investor how much involvement you want, and how much liquidity you want, and how much risk you want, because they all vary with the various investment vehicles. To answer the second question, with the REIT, you probably get a monthly check. They'll make monthly distributions of the income off of the investment properties, unless it's the kind of REIT that invests in development projects. And what I mean by that is, let's say the purpose of a REIT is to develop shopping centers. They might raise a lot of money, go out, and they'll build a shopping center, and then they'll fill it up, and then they'll sell the shopping center. And that's when you would get your money if it were that kind of REIT. So there are different kinds of REITs that have different types of income patterns and risk factors.
So one thing I want to jump in here with is, this is about informing and educating our audience, right? And one of the things that we often bring into this conversation are the different kinds of patterns people can engage in their investing in. It's emotional states and patterns of relating to money. And they're archetypal patterns that have different names to help us understand them. We all have all of them that engage in different ways. So, like, one example would be when you were just talking about the REITs, somebody's strong innocent and fool archetypes might jump to the foreground and be like, wow, REIT, that sounds like it's a great idea. And then the fool's going to be like, let me get all my money out of all my investments and put it all into REITs. That's a great idea. I get a monthly check. And they'll just go. And I want to just rein that back in and say, whatever it is that you want to invest in, you want to make sure that your warrior comes forward, the one that is going to do the due diligence. Because, my gosh, I'm sure that there's a number of different REITs out there. And how do you go about determining if that's something you want to go into? What amount of money in your portfolio or in your potential, like, cash that you have you want to put towards that? And how do you go about choosing the right one? And what do you need to know and understand about what that's doing? Like, I loved how you said that. Well, wait, there's different kinds. Some you'll start getting a check right away. Some it has a different purpose. And this is all about how to develop the capacity, whatever you're interested in and looking more into, and getting grounded in, wow, that speaks to me. I want to learn more about that. Not, I'm going to pull the trigger and I'm going to get in. Right? Because we're not recommending or advising that anybody do any of these. It's more notice which are the ones that have you engaged and interested and wanting to be involved. Like, one of the things I get from the REIT versus the syndicate or the partnership one is you don't actually need to interface or interact with the other people that are invested in that.
Not at all.
So that's a big one for people who don't want that. There may be other people that are like, no, I want to have more hands-on and I want to be engaged with the people that I'm doing that with. Like, for some people that might really mean a lot to them, to be more engaged and really tangibly know what they're up to.
Exactly. A REIT is just like a mutual fund. You wouldn't know who else is invested in that same mutual fund or particularly care.
And do they also have, did they go down sometimes too? Like, I'm thinking about, there's one, I don't know if it was a REIT, but there's this is a great story from my family. So in New York City, there's a incredible grouping of buildings. It has all these grassy areas around them. It's like a park setting. And my grandparents lived there, and my aunt and uncle lived there in New York. And it's called Peter Cooper and Stuyvesant Village. And I grew up going there every couple of weeks and visiting. It was beautiful. At Thanksgiving a couple of years ago, my aunt on my mom's side of the family was talking about how she works for the government in Florida. She's a government employee in Florida, and her retirement fund invested in the company that bought the place where my grandparents and my aunt lived in New York as a real estate investment. I don't know if it was a REIT or something else. But it was very, very, it was like this whole vision of what was going to happen with it, and it completely bombed. And it bankrupted the employee, or I don't know, I shouldn't say bankrupted, but it dramatically impacted the retirement funds of one aunt and the other aunt's living there. And we were looking at each other like, what are the chances of that? And it's one of those things where I want to be really clear that as much as REITs can be really great, and you said real estate's doing well now, if real estate took a different turn or it wasn't doing as well, is it potential that you could lose your money if it was put in a REIT? I want to make sure people hear this. There's no guarantee when you invest in anything that it's going to be 100% positive cash flow, even a REIT like that. Could you speak to that? Or
Yes, yes, absolutely. Well, again, there's, REITs are created for different types of investment vehicles, and what you speak to, first of all, is there's a bigger discussion about real estate in general, which is just, I was taught growing up, real estate always goes up in value, but I learned when I got into the business that isn't true. That real estate is cyclical, just like everything else, and in my career of 34 years, I've seen really 4 significant corrections in value in real estate in the Silicon Valley. So it does go down from time to time. So if a REIT is well structured, generally a REIT should be a pretty conservative investment vehicle. If it's well structured, what would probably happen is you might see some decline in income, and you could definitely see some decline in the price of your stock in the REIT, your interest in the REIT, if the value of real estate goes down, because they have to constantly reevaluate the value of the real estate. But as long as the income is still there, then you can hang on forever anyway, right? It's just, it kind of becomes a little bit less liquid, meaning that it might cost you money to get out now, but as long as you can hold on until the value comes back and you're still making money, then you're okay.
is that what? Oh, I'm sorry. Go on.
Whereas where they go wrong or go bad is the more aggressively structured ones. For instance, if you buy into a REIT that invests in commercial property, and commercial property rentals go south, suddenly it's very hard to rent out office space. Then oftentimes what you'll find is that the income dries up and the value of the properties are going down, so the value of your REIT is going down. And now if you're an older person on a fixed income, you can't really afford to keep hanging on to that investment. And a lot of people kind of end up, down that way. But if you just hold on to it long enough, if it's been properly structured, it'll eventually come back.
And is that why a lot of investment advisors recommend that you have a diverse portfolio? So at the times when real estate is in one of its lows, you're invested in other vehicles, other ways, whether it's stocks or foreign exchange or other different things that you can invest in that might be doing well at the time that real estate's going down, so that they kind of balance each other out?
Yes, exactly. To the extent that I understand diversification, I think that's the primary purpose behind it, is to make sure that everything is cyclical. Everything is cyclical. Nothing goes up always. And so they want to make sure that when you're in a down cycle with with one of your major investments, that that you aren't destroyed by having all of your money in one basket.
Great. Now, one of the things that I asked if you would be willing to talk a little bit about are, and maybe you've already feel like you've touched on them, but I wanted to make sure we really focused on the 3 most important benefits of real estate investing and the 3 most significant potholes that people really need to be aware of, so that we're making sure that people are getting a lot of value out of this interview.
Excellent. Well, obviously I've been in the real estate and mortgage business for 34 years, so I'm a believer. I'm a big believer. In terms of investing in income-producing real estate, really there's in my mind 3 major benefits, which are tax treatment, and I'll go into that in a sec, and appreciation, well, was 2 different benefits of tax treatment. So here's the way it works.
Okay.
income that comes in, if you buy if you lend money out and then you earn money back on interest, you have to claim that as ordinary income. So you're claiming, so as the income comes back, you're paying taxes on that, as you just have to pay taxes on it. With rental real estate, as the rental comes in, you can actually depreciate the real estate because they consider it, the IRS considers it a depreciating asset. You can depreciate that over a certain period of time. There's a lot of rules around it, but basically the value of your property is probably still going up, but you can, on paper, assume it's going down and write that paper loss off against the income that you're collecting.
Oh, and that's what you mean by, I want to make sure, because there's, again, those jargony words from our different fields. So depreciation means that as far as the IRS is concerned, when you buy something new, the moment you buy it, no matter when you bought it, it's automatically going to start depreciating because it's going to get older, it's going to need changes to it, it's not as good as the next property that's out there that's newer. So it's saying it's going down in value. And then you're saying that you can make money off of it, and then you can say, but since what I'm making money off of isn't worth what I initially bought it for, I can say, well, I want the difference to be taken into account, and then I don't have to pay the taxes.
That's exactly right.
Okay.
So you get a benefit of depreciation. Now there's limitations, so each investor needs to talk to their own tax advisor. And as a general rule, most folks can't write depreciation off against their regular income, but they can use it to offset the rental income, and that ends up being just a huge benefit. The second thing is that as the property appreciates, as real estate appreciates in value, as the value of that grows, you're making money. You're not accessing it until you sell it, but as you make that money, it's not recognized anywhere, so you're not taxed on the appreciation of the money until sometime down the road when you decide to sell it, which is amazing. I mean, it's really truly, because if you hold on to a piece of property for years with the theory of compound interest, compound appreciation, that money just grows and grows and grows, and it just grows all on its own. You don't have to keep taking taxes out and sending it to the IRS for it. And then the third thing is when you do sell it, in real estate, you can do something called an exchange, which means I can take an apartment building that I've depreciated down to almost nothing, so I have now that I've depreciated the value down, if I'm going to sell it for a lot, then I have a big gain. That's, in theory, a taxable gain.
And that's a good point, because you've been benefiting by this idea that, hey, this is going down in value, so I don't have to pay taxes as I'm making income off of it. But then the other side of it is when you sell it, and it's like, let's say you bought it for, just to make it simple, $100,000, and you're going to sell it for $1 million, and you've depreciated down to nothing, you've got a huge gain there. Like, you could have $1 million of gain. So how do you do an exchange?
So what you do is there's a process. There's folks that handle this for you, and you just simply exchange that property for another property, and you move your basis into the new property. So what happens is that when you move that, when you exchange a property instead of outright selling it, then you start the whole process over again, and you still don't pay any taxes. So you can defer taxes on the appreciation essentially until you're dead.
And then your property that you exchange it for is worth what the property was worth at the time you sold it. So you're making that much more money off of it. Like, I mean, I wouldn't exchange for a $100,000 property, right? I would exchange for $1 million property.
Correct. You want to exchange into a property that is worth at least as much as the one you're selling.
And then instead of getting a big cash outlay in terms of what I sold, I just get the income off of the new property that I've exchanged for.
That's correct.
Okay.
And you can always use mortgages to pull cash out at that point if you wish. But it gets very complicated, and again, that's way beyond the scope of what we're talking about here.
Yeah, but what you're saying is there's a lot of creativity and a lot of potentiality that you can have when you invest in real estate. And it's very important to be very smart about what it could look like, what the downfalls are, what the potential benefits are. So those are some of the benefits. We don't have a lot of time. Tell the potholes. We got to make sure we get the potholes in here too.
Risks. Okay. So the most important risk is just the financial liability. People assume that when they buy rental properties, that they're always going to be just getting the rent. And there will be times when you don't get the rent. There will be times when you've got to make repairs to the property. There will be times when your renters destroy the property, and you have to go in and spend thousands of dollars repairing it.
Yes, and this happens. And anybody who's been an owner of property knows that this can definitely happen. Okay, so that's one.
So that's one. The second major downside to real estate investment is illiquidity. When you buy a piece of property, it's very, very hard to get your money back out until you decide to sell it. But it's not something that happens overnight. So unless you're investing in a REIT, it's not liquid at all.
Okay.
And then the third is just the time involved. Now, generally with a syndication, you don't have to invest a lot of time. You just have to read a report, and that's about it. With a REIT, there's no investment of your time at all. But with sole ownership or a partnership, you're going to spend a lot of time on that property. So it's a very active investment.
And I think I want to be clear here that there's no time that you need to spend on it after you buy it in a syndicate or a REIT, but there's a lot of time up front that you want to make sure you understand what you're reading, you understand that this is really a good investment for you given your needs and what it is that you're looking for. Like, definitely take the time up front before making the decision, but once you're invested, there's not much time involved. Is that what you're saying?
That's correct. That's correct. I mean, just like if I were investing in a mutual fund, I would spend some time reading about that mutual fund, about what its investment strategy was and what its history was. You should do the same thing with a syndicator or with a REIT.
Yeah, yeah, and I think it's important. If you and I talked a little bit about this before the show, that there's certain people that get people to invest in real estate, convince them in the whole thing, and then they don't stay in the deal. Like, that's another one that it seems like is a big pothole that people need to be aware of.
I'm not sure.
That somebody might get a group of people together and say, this is a great real estate deal, and they're looking like they're going to be managing it, or they're really strongly involved, and then once they get everybody invested, they don't stay involved.
Okay. Well, that's something certainly you would want to vet that, your syndicator. And one of the things, one of the questions really is asking people that know the syndicator, who is this person? Are they good on their word? Are they going to be there after the fact to take care of business? Because that's obviously a huge piece of the puzzle.
Yeah. And in some cases, there are people out there that will be happy to take your money, and then they don't stay involved.
There are. It certainly has happened. I would think that's kind of rare, but it certainly has happened, especially during the really ugly times that we had the last few years, where the investments weren't working out and the syndicators were going broke, and they went off and did other things and just left their investors high and dry.
Yeah, so again, something to be aware of, and it's such a mix, right? Because the innocent and the fool want to just get in, and it's a great deal, but it's like, if you're dependent on somebody else and they're being there, you got to make sure you have a very clear, trusting relationship with that person that they're going to fulfill.
That's correct.
So that's great. And then is there a third one that you want to make sure we get before we close? Or did we cover the 3 potholes? I want to make sure we got all 3.
I think we covered them. We have the active management, the financial liability, and the illiquidity.
Yes, yeah, that's right. The time, the financial, and okay, great. This is so good. So thank you so much. I want to make sure we also finish with our typical way that we want to close these shows is by making sure that whoever is tuning in gets some real value. And so we want to offer an evocative question for everybody. So it's, when you think about making your next real estate purchase, what's the biggest concern you have? So really tapping in and looking at what is your emotional response to the next real estate purchase you want to make. whether it's an investment or your first house, because for some people it's the biggest thing that they ever buy.
For most people.
Yeah, and then your inspiring invitation. If you're curious about real estate purchasing and investing, take one small step to consult with your financial advisor to determine what you're capable of. What is your liquidity? What do you have that you could invest in real estate if that's what you want to do? And meet with a mortgage advisor to determine what it would really look like that analysis. Like, wow, I'm really looking at doing this. This is what I'm thinking of. And make sure you are fully informed and know what you're walking into. And then our useful tool is, one of the reasons I wanted to have you, Casey, on the show is because you have a book coming out in July. Could you speak a little bit about your book?
Well, this book is it's called The Smart Money Mortgage Guide, and it's really just a book on how to get the best mortgage for you and your family. And I just simply really dig in behind the curtain and show people what kinds of things they ought to be thinking about and before getting a mortgage, and then how to navigate through the process to work in partnership with your mortgage advisor to get the best deal.
Well, that's great. What a great way to empower people in terms of their purchasing, whether it's a home or a commercial property, and what is it really? What are the nuts and bolts of it? So that's coming out in July.
That's the plan.
And where is that going? Where can people get that? What's the website they can go to learn more about the book and what you do?
They can go to loanguide.com, and there will hopefully be information about the book on that by July.
Loan Guide?
Loan Guide.
And you also have a blog, right? Like that you write all kinds of articles that really inform and help people understand how to navigate this whole world. Is that what my understanding?
Yes. And that is also that's loanguide.com.
Great. Wow. Well, thank you so much for being here. And, one of the things we really want to do here at the Wealth Psychology Show on Sylvia's Sylvia Global Network is to support people in making really wise decisions financially, being very healthy in terms of their approach to their money and their wealth, and inviting experts on from all different kinds of conversations related to money in our lives so that we can empower people and really further this conversation internally and among people so that maybe we can shift the tendency to be so easily taken advantage of by people who are knowledgeable when we're not, so that bridge gets crossed a little bit and we can feel really like we can trust our advisors and we know what it is we need to know going into the conversation. So that's an exciting book because that'll really help people feel like, oh, I know what kinds of questions I need to ask, and I know what answers are really going to make sense and which answers are not necessarily going to jive with what I need to do. Like, is that what you're going to be doing, is educating people about that?
Yes. I mean, in essence, the first question you have to ask yourself is not, how do I qualify for a mortgage? And can I get a mortgage, but really should I get a mortgage? And I go into a great deal of depth about that before I ever get into the nuts and bolts.
Great.
And then I go into the nuts and bolts so that if you've made a decision that, yes, it is the right thing to do, then you have the right tools to make sure that you get the right product and price.
Well, what a wise thing to do, because then the people who come to you who have that information, it's a good thing for them, and it's a good use of your time and a good use of their time to go forward, because you can spend a lot of time going for something and then find out it's not a really good idea for you. So, well, I love it, empowering people to make good, wise decisions for themselves and their lives. So, Casey Fleming, mortgage advisor based in San Jose, thank you so much for joining us on Wealth Psychology. I'm Emily Bouchard from the Wealth Legacy Group, and we really thank you all for joining us and being part of our program today. And definitely post your questions or comments on the YouTube site where this is going to continue to be there for you. So thank you.
Thank you, Emily.
Yeah, thank you, Casey.